set the sights on me to ruin my career.
So Greater Manchester Police weren't protecting their own?
No.
In any of this?
No, I'll tell you who they're protecting. They're protecting. He's ruined that many people's lives, yet he's protected.
How corrupt are the old Bill?
Police forces don't want any coming out about themselves, so they will cover it up as best they can.
Old Bill are altering documents.
Right, I've seen things and I've heard things myself, but when it happens to you personally, and the lengths they went to, he's a big Mason, this guy, and he says to me, don't matter who you go and speak to, they'll always side with me, because that's the way the system is.
Well, how many accounts was he convicted?
21 offences.
21?
Of deception. The judge, as opposed to sending him to prison, took 40,000 out of his pension.
And that's it?
That's what happened.
So if you were to explain to the listeners today, what do you think the Greater Manchester Police like is today? Gary, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, very much looking forward to this one. Let's roll all the way back. Where did you grow up and how did you become undercover copper to now whistleblower?
Well, I was actually born in Salford, Lower Kersal, Salford. 2 up 2 down type Coronation Street style thing from the northwest. Mum and Dad worked hard, but obviously we didn't have much money. No history of anybody being in the police in my family whatsoever. I grew up in a rough area of Salford, and my mates at that time were what some people would class as undesirable, I suppose. You know, for mum and dad obviously kept a watch on that. For example, I'd go out shoplifting. By the time I was 15, I could drive, and I was actually working at my uncle's shop at weekends, driving his van as a 15-year-old. So I wouldn't have had insurance, wouldn't have had a driving licence. You can imagine, had I have been stopped or had an accident, I'd have had a criminal conviction. Would I have later got into the police? I don't think so. Had I have got done for shoplifting? Again, I wouldn't have done. But in relation to the way I grew up and the area I was in, that gave me a bit of a grounding, really, with the people I used to mix with when I eventually did become an undercover police officer. Because, and I might be jumping backwards and forwards here, but to be an undercover police officer, not everybody could do it. I'm not saying that blowing my own trumpet. When I was in the Amiga unit in Great Manchester Police, it was 7,500 police officers at that time, GMP. I was one of 6 undercover officers in a force of that size.
Wow.
And what they do to you is they depolice you, if you've ever heard that terminology before.
They depolice you?
Depolice.
Okay.
So what does that mean? For example, we ran a training course once with some lads who came on the course hoping to become undercover officers. One in particular was sent to a pub in Moss Side, which he'd been told that morning, this little job's coming. Doesn't matter whether you do any good at it or not, but we want you to get a feel for what it's like when you go up buying such as drugs off somebody who's a criminal. Yeah. In actual fact, it was set up. The people who were going to meet were police officers playing the part, but he didn't know that. So when he goes in, it's all recorded. They offer him whatever they've got, and what he says to him is, "Okay, I'll go away and make some inquiries about that." Now, who talks like that?
Exactly.
The police talk like that. So this the way you talk, there's the way you walk. Some people could say, if they're sat in a pub, well, look at these two walking in here, CID, because of the way they walk. Yeah. So the whole point is to depolice you. Yeah. So you don't have those mannerisms. You don't have that so-called phraseology that police officers would use. Which is why it's important. You're actually taken out of the police service, which is what I was. So I did the deep infiltration course, passed that, and then went into Amiga. Then from that moment on, you're not allowed to go to police stations. You're not allowed to go on police courses. You're not allowed to mix with police officers for obvious reasons. So how it actually happened, obviously, a lot in between me coming from Salford and then becoming
what age did you become a police officer?
I joined as a police cadet, 16 and a half. I was about to get expelled from school, and I was at Salford Grammar School, believe it or not. I passed the 11 plus, but I wasted it. So I was about to get expelled for never going to school. But then my dad stepped in and they promised, if I promised for the last 6 months to get my head down, they would give me a write-up to join the police cadets, because that was just something. I don't know why. I couldn't even tell you now why that's happened, why I wanted to do it. But that's what I fancied doing at that point. So they put the wheel back on for me. I got my head down for the last 6 months, and then I joined Great Manchester Police Cadets on the 1st of April, 1975. So the way the cadets was run then, you were a cadet from being 16, for example, up to 18 and a half when you then became a substantive police officer. So it gave you a grounding in a way to see what being in the police was like. It was a disciplined service. You had to, have a smart uniform, clean your boots, bull them, haircuts. But you got to go in different departments and see different things about the police, which you would be doing later on when you became a police officer. For example, I went out with scenes of crime, and we went to the morgue one day, and there was a girl there called Wanda Scala who was killed by the serial killer, Trevor Hardy. And I went with him as a 16-year-old, and they pulled her out from the fridge, and she'd been beaten with a brick. And as a 16-year-old, having only a few months before having left school, to see that. Yeah. But at that moment in time, nobody ever said to me, "Do you feel okay coming in?" You were just expected that you would do, because later, further down the line, you would be doing it yourself. But I don't know, what effect that sort of thing had on me.
What was Moss Side like back in the day, sort of late 70s, 80s? Because it was a rough place, right?
Well, a rough place, and you had the riots there as well, in the 80s. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of shebeens, a lot of drugs in Moss Side. Afro-Caribbean was people who were mainly in the area. And, drugs were freely available in such places as shebeens. But
what's shebeens?
It's like a club where you would go, late night drinking house. But obviously, you'd be in there till the early hours of the morning, unlicensed. And they had them all around Moss Side. And that's where obviously drugs were being sold. But we had at that time obviously a drug squad. Yeah. You didn't have an undercover unit like what we progressed to further down the line. It was like the drug squad trying to deal with that sort of thing. But I don't think at that time there was the amount of violence that occurred further down the line. Murders in Moss Side when certain gangs took over, the Gooch gang, for example. And then there was rivalry between gangs in Moss Side.
Was it the Gooch and the Doddington gangs?
The Doddington gangs, yeah. People getting killed. So, it became much more serious. Whereas perhaps in the 70s, for example, 60s, 70s, it was a bit more laid back. Perhaps mainly cannabis in Moss Side. But you can see how it progressed to what it became further down the line.
I remember coming up on away days with West Ham and going through Moss Side to get to Main Road.
Yeah, well, you had
to keep your eyes peeled around there.
Yeah. And obviously, because that was just off Princess Road, Manchester City's ground. Yeah. Obviously, they moved then to the Etihad.
That's right.
Princess Road and around that area there, the estates around there, some of them you wouldn't go in unless you knew somebody.
Unless you were Mob Andy. What was it like? What did you sense then? You were a young lad, 80s. You saw the violence go to a whole new level in Moss Side and Manchester, Salford, etc. When was it when you decided, you know what, I want a bit more of this. I want to get under the underbelly of this.
Well, obviously, when you join the police, you can't become an undercover police officer at that time. Yeah. So. You're like a fish out of water. So you've got to join, become a police officer, go in uniform. I worked in the city centre at Bootle Street on the A division, which was a busy division. A lot of nightlife, socially, drinking, drugs as well there, fighting. Obviously, when the football was on at that time, you'd have rioting at weekends. So it was a busy division, and you had to do that for 2 years. And during that first 2 years, they could obviously get rid of you whenever they wanted to if you did something wrong. But after 2 years, you then are substantive in that rank as a police officer. And they can only get rid of you then if you do something wrong. So I did that. But for me, unlike some police, I'm not calling them, some police officers could stay on one division or in one department for the whole 30-year service. But I was of the mind that I wanted to move around. So after 2.5 years in uniform, I then applied for other departments. So I got an advanced driving course, which opened a door for me. I went to Salford, which is obviously where I'm from, working from the Crescent. I then passed an advanced motorcycle course, which was great for me as well. That opened another door, and got my Class 1 HGV. And when I became an undercover police officer down the line, that was where that came to fruition as well.
What's it like being brought up in an area? Everyone know who you are, and then they're also clocking you at your old bill.
When I say I worked in Salford, I worked in a traffic car, sort of 3-litre Capris. So I wasn't on the street walking around. I was in one of them. And obviously, there was a flashing round all over the show. Yeah. So it was a different kind of policing with that. But the only reason that I did that was because I wanted that advanced driving course. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. It wasn't something I really wanted to do. But to have that driving authority was great. And it was great for me when I became a surveillance operative on the regional crime squad. So I did the bikes, and then opportunity came up for me to go on the regional crime squad. So that is what is today the National Crime Squad, National Crime Agency. But then we had regional crime squad offices throughout the UK. So they were classed, broken down into regions. So I was in the number 1 region, and what it consisted of was a surveillance team, which would be 5 cars and a motorcycle. And you would obviously get an operation in being with targets who you've received information about, who are about to do certain things. So, for example, one day we had information about a team from Salford who were doing security vans, security core, cash in transit.
Yeah.
Picked them up at the address in the morning, followed them down to Trafford Park, and the worst time to be seen by villains is when you pick them up from where they live or where they sign on the dole, because that's where they're expecting the police to be. Yeah. So once you've got them away from the home address or somewhere like the dole office, they settle down if they haven't seen anything. So that's where you've got to be on your game to make sure they don't see you. So to do surveillance, is an art, not stand out, because they'll pull all sorts of tricks to see if anybody is with them, i.e. turning down a no-through road. Whereas they'll go down, if you go down with them, they're going to see you when they turn around and come the other way. Yeah. So you've got to have your eyes open. But once they've settled down, they take off. We followed this team down to Trafford Park, and as we got onto Trafford Road, there's a bank, NatWest Bank on the left, and the security van's just pulling up. So what they do is they stop in a side street, they go back, they attack the security guard. The bags are flying everywhere, but we're there, and they get arrested. So what better evidence have you got than that? So they can't say it wasn't us. But you can see how that tool that the police had with the surveillance was fantastic. So that's what I did. And in effect, some people would class that as undercover police work because, you're not in a uniform, you're in the shadows, but you're following people. So this is where my point about undercover work and people's perception of it varies. Yeah. Some people might claim, you hear it in the paper, undercover officers involved. For example, looking at after hours drinking in a pub. I could, if this was a pub here, and I'm looking at you as the landlord, they'll put police officers in there, not in uniform, because what's the point of that? They're going to put people in there in plain clothes. Well, they would be classed as undercover police officers, but they're not really. Yeah. I'm talking about the work I did in that department was being taken out of the police service for 6 years. And you can imagine how that messes with your head.
I'm sure.
And it still messes with my head to this day.
How old were you when you went properly undercover?
I was 30.
Were you?
Yeah.
Did you feel right? Did you feel ready for it then?
Because I'd been on the regional crime squad and the dedicated drugs unit, which was an offshoot from the regional crime squad. I did. Yeah. Because I love that sort of work.
Did you find that it was quite easy for you to blend in? If you went in a boozer today, you'd blend in with, you'd clock who the dealers are, you'd clock who's selling schneid, you'd clock what's going on. Did you find it easy to blend?
And even though I've been out of the police service the amount of years I've been out now, wherever I go, I'm always looking. Yeah. I never forget a face. Yeah. And weirdly, I never forget registration numbers, if you can believe that. But I'll never forget a face or a voice. Yeah. I might not remember your name, but I'll remember your face.
Same, I'm a face, yeah.
Yeah, and villains are the same though, really. Which when you've been an undercover officer doing the work I've done, it's then difficult for the rest of your life because it's a small world. Yeah. You can go somewhere and you'll bump into somebody, as I've done. And I'm talking about bumping into people who I know. Yeah. But equally could bump into villains. Yeah. So perhaps what I'm going to speak about later proves the point as to why I'm sat here doing this.
Tell me when you become a proper undercover. Tell me a story of your first major incident.
Well, when I joined the Amiga unit, late 89, we had the problems with the football hooliganism. Yeah. So Margaret Thatcher wanted something done about it. So what happened then? The Great Manchester Police formed Amiga, which was the undercover unit to deal with football hooliganism. So a team was put together, taken out of the police service. They had a secret location where they worked from. And they started putting operations together to look at particular football clubs with particular football hooliganism, an element of it, which required looking at. So the first job they ever did was Bolton Wanderers, and they had great success with that. They went to the courts, and they got convicted.
Who got convicted?
The targets who were on the operation.
So you're going for the top men, were you?
Well, I wasn't in at that time, but I'm just discussing with you what was the first job. So that was Bolton Wanderers. They had success with that. Then they went to Manchester City, and the young governors. They ran a job with them. And then they had targets off that one, which they infiltrated, got evidence against them. A day comes where they all get arrested, they get charged, go to court. So GMP were having great success with this.
Greater Manchester Police?
Yes. So then I joined, and they were doing Manchester United, which is Operation Mars. Now, I was expected when I started to go in as a football undercover officer in relation to Manchester United's football hooligan element. The first job you would do when I hit the office that day was to look at the intelligence to see if there's anybody there who I knew. Because what's the point of me going in, pretending to be Gary Bluggs, and next minute I'm talking to somebody who I know. It was ridiculous. So I have to look at the intelligence, and as I'm going through it, there's a lad who's one of an associate of the main target who I know from Salford. So my dilemma then is, what do I do? This is my first week in the Amiga unit. And do I say to them, I know this guy, or do I think, I'll be all right? Chances are I won't bloody see him. Thankfully, I told them that I knew him, because a few months later, one of the main pubs the United hooligan element used to use with Tony, I forgot his name, it'll come to me in a minute. Tony O'Neill, who was classed as the general.
Yeah. What booze? You remember them in the booze?
Yeah, the Grey Parrot.
The Parrot,
in Hume.
Yeah.
Okay. So they used to use that, and that's where they used to meet. This particular day, it was a derby match with United City. So all the football hooligans were in there, as were 2 undercover officers from our office. Everything was going nicely. Shout goes up, we're off. So they all come walking out the front door. This is being filmed, by the way, covertly. And you would think, with the amount of people who come out in that pub that day, they were coming out the front, walking around the back again, and coming back out again. You wouldn't think there were so many people who get in that pub. So then they walk off from the pub in en masse with Tony O'Neill at the front, and they're walking through the estate. And where they're going is into the city centre. And who they're looking for? The opposing fans' city. For a bit of a scrap. When they get in the estate, the shout goes up to stop. And then somebody shouts to Tony O'Neill, got a couple of sweets with us. Right? So, a couple of sweets. Anyway, who are they looking at? The two police officers.
Yeah.
So somebody knows one of them, spotted them. And what happens to get a good hiding? And they're left in the estate. They go to hospital, have to have stitches for the cuts. They could have been knifed, But the point I'm trying to make is that brought home to me how important it was to be honest. Now, I could have said, no, everything's great, I'll go in there. That could have been me.
Yeah.
Those 2 undercover officers were no good anymore. So
they took a pasting.
They were left. And but what they actually did was take them into an estate out of the way. Because although you're trying to follow them covertly with the cameras, you can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
So they got them into a location in the estate where they knew no one was about. Give them a good hiding there. And then waltz off. And they carried on into the city centre, and as if nothing had happened.
Yeah.
But it shows you what can happen when you are found out to be.
They're lucky they just got a paste in.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'd be traumatised by that as well. Yeah. But to have all those people kicking, punching what I'm trying to say is you could equally have someone knife you as well, and you wouldn't know who it was.
Imagine that feeling, because if you go to the West End, whoever you're with, and there's a couple of old build out undercover, you ain't got a chance.
No.
You ain't got a chance.
No.
I don't blame them either.
Yeah.
Really? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't start coming in our crowd. Take the Yeah. Fair play.
Yeah,
so what was your world moving on then? Tell me about your Greater Manchester Police. When did you get the call up to go and work at Italia 90?
So obviously I couldn't do the United bit.
Yeah.
But,
were you a United fan?
Yeah. So what then happens is the Metropolitan Police had fallen foul of their evidence logs, because they had the contract with the FA to do all England's matches. So the FA walked away from the Met, and because GMP, Great Manchester Police, had all this success with Bolton, Manchester City, they came to them. So we got the contract to do all the England's home and away games.
Wow, okay.
And one part and parcel of that at that time when they got the contract was to go to Italy in the June of 1990. So I come in the office, told I was going. So I had 6-7 months to prepare before we went. Flew out to obviously Sardinia, and that's when I shaved my head for the first time to look the part. And it was amazing going, because I got pulled at the airport, searched, and I make the point in the book, if I'd have been going through there with a pinstripe suit on and a briefcase, I'd never have got stopped. So it made me laugh, but it proved to me that I must look
the part.
To have that happen to me. Yeah. So obviously we go to Italy, and we're there for 5 weeks while England are in the competition, living and breathing with the England fans. What we had there was a setup with a control room and a phone number. So no mobile phones. And you might think, well, how are you going to make a phone call? Well, on the days when there was no matches, what do all the England contingent do? They're all in and out of all the pubs all the time. Yeah. So that's what we were doing. And by then, we had certain people who infiltrated at home, because on a match day in England, you'd have City, United, they'd be at one another's throats on a match day. When you go to an England away game, they're all one big family. Yeah. There's no fighting amongst them then. So, and that's how it was. So you built up this rapport and friendship with all number of fans from different groups. So we'd spend our day mixing around the bars, and then you pick up on things what were being planned. So there was the rumpus was planned for 6 o'clock one evening, going from the train station. So you were able to feed that through to the control room when you could, and obviously be ready for any trouble in relation to where they were planning to do it.
What homework were you doing? I want to roll back a little bit. You said you did 6-7 months homework. What was your homework? Were you looking at Chelsea, Were you looking at West Ham, looking at Millwall?
Obviously, I was building up my own knowledge, but you've got to be careful with that, because you might come out with something inadvertently to somebody, and they're going to think, how do you know that? Yeah. You know what I mean? So sometimes too much knowledge is dangerous. Yeah. So I tempered that with not knowing too much, but just knowing the faces. As I said to you before, I'm good with faces. Yeah. And if I saw somebody I thought, oh, I've seen them before, you try and get into that little circle of drinking, and then they see you. Then they see you again at some point. And one example was we were away with Izmir, Turkey. And this is where England fans get blamed, and it's not always their fault. Right. So we were in a bar in Izmir the night before the match, and everything was going nicely. Everyone's having a drink, having a laugh. Next minute, the windows go in the bar. There's all these tables and chairs coming through the window. Everyone's obviously covered in glass. Run out, and there's a load of Turkish fans outside, like that, and the throats about what they're going to do to you. Who turns up? Police, en masse. No, like it might be in England. What's happened? Who's done this? Yeah. It was a case of English, guilty. And we all got took off in these trucks, took to prison in Izmir, and kept there overnight till we went to court the following day. But there was 40 of us in a cage, and in the middle of this room was a hole, which was the toilet. Oh, mate. So you can imagine the stink in there, and you kept in there overnight. And the point I make is, Tony O'Neill, he wasn't there, but for example, he's a fully fledged hooligan. Yeah. He is who he is. Yeah. I'm tending to be Garry whoever, the football hooligan, but I'm not really. I'm a police officer. Yeah. So you can imagine how much harder it is to keep your act together when you're with them then in a situation like that, and not let your guard slip.
Imagine you got clocked in there.
I know.
40 men in there, and you got clocked in one bar, and the Turkish won't care about whether you're
they won't think, you'd be left. You'd just be left.
Oh, man.
And the following morning, you got took off then in groups to go to court. And then you were fined, because they fined for the damage at the bar.
Oh, they fine you and then release you?
Then release you.
Did the old Bill bash you about at all?
Yeah.
They did? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Especially in Italy. Yeah. We got battered there. Yeah. I've got photographs in that book, which I had a little camera with me. And we all got a pincer movement.
So you were wired up as well?
No, this was my own.
Okay.
It was a little camera I had. And we got, there was trouble one day, and there was tear gas flying everywhere, stones, bricks, and I ran off. And I was without my colleagues, so I don't know where they'd gone, but it was survival of the fittest. As I'm running down the street, I thought best thing to do is get me back against a wall. Then I don't have to worry about what's behind me, and I can see what's happening. And the next minute, a lad who I don't know stood next to me, and he's obviously thought the same as me. Next minute, I heard him moan, and when I looked, he got hit in the face with a brick, and he just went to the floor. And it was still going, it was still madness and chaos, and I ran off again. Now, I should have been helping him, really, as a police officer. But, what would have happened to me had I have done that?
Yeah.
I still don't know to this day what happened to him. But as we run off, the Italian police then, in a pincer movement, got us all caught up on a garage forecourt, and you were made to lie down there. Oh. Then they had, and I've got pictures in that book where you can see him with the rifles, with the tear gas. And had they have seen me with that camera, as they did with others, they came over and smashed him. Yeah. And if you try to get up, they came over and got you battering. So, and that is where you're on your own. As a police officer, in normal circumstances, when you're working as a police officer, you've got a radio. Yeah. If someone has a go at you, or you're arresting someone and they have a go on the radio, within a short period of time, hopefully, there's going to be someone there to help you, assist you. You can't do that in them situations. Now, had I been the lad who got hit in the face with the brick, that could have been the end of my career. Yeah.
What was it like being on tour with the England fans when you've got 50 clubs, all the main faces, mob-handed? What was that feeling like being right in the mix of everyone? Was everyone getting on? Oh, you're from Bolton, but normally I hate you because you're from Burnley.
Yeah, well,
whatever it may be.
Like I say, when it was England, they would be piss-taking.
Yeah.
And you accept that. Like the Chelsea headhunters.
Yeah.
They hold that club very dearly to the heart, don't they? As do any Manchester United fan, Manchester City. But you can get away with a little bit of banter when you're away with England, because they're not there to fight you. But they might remember that for another day when they come to play at Manchester or you go to play them. Because, a lot of these fights were organised. Tony O'Neill was on the phone speaking to his opposition and whoever they were playing that day to arrange to meet somewhere so that they could get away from the police.
Yeah.
Just that they could have a bit of a rumble. So it is a lot pre-planned.
What was it like for you being in Italia 90 for that 5 weeks?
Hard work, because you were with them 24/7. So it's like everyone has bad days, and there might be days where we don't want to be there. And you've got when you do get to speak back home about what's going on back home, and you're hearing problems there, it increases your anxiety, because you feel you should be at home helping out with whatever's going on there, but you're not, and you've come to this place. You're having to keep your head together and play this part, because what you're doing is acting.
Yeah.
To be an undercover officer, you've got to be a good actor. You're playing a part.
So were you going out there, getting on the piss with the fans, being a fan?
Yeah,
being a hooligan?
And people have said to me, well, how do you go on the piss with them?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, who's going to believe whatever you say? Because you're going to be as drunk as them. Well, we had a thing where, and this is another part of the training. So I'm with you now, and I'm drinking with you. I've got a pint. Then I'll say, I might go over there then. Take that pint with me. I dump that, get an empty one, come back. Because at the end of the day, I've got to do a log about what I've gleaned from that session with who I've been with, what I've heard, and put that in as evidence. And that's those evidence logs. And when I said to you earlier about the Met losing the contract with the FA, it's because their logs were questioned, for how right they were. So when we took over, it was instilled in you that you don't go getting drunk, and you've got to do that procedure. And it does work, because, whoever you sat with at one point, and I go over there, now come back to you again, and I've got like a quarter in it now, you just think I've drunk it. And then you keep doing that and revolving round. And someone's always got a pint down somewhere, or there's an empty glass, and you just keep dumping it.
Did you not feel uncomfortable being undercover old Bill with a load of football fans having fun in Italy at the time? Did you feel like, I'm not 100% comfortable with this?
No, I didn't. No,
okay.
No, I enjoyed it, and I'll tell you, we used to have a lad called Tottenham Steve, who a big fan of Tottenham Hotspur, and his mates, they used to come down to Manchester, and they'd stay with us at the house. Now he was a postman, and he'd left his wife and kids. So obsessed with it was he with Tottenham and England, following England. Postman, he used to nick at that time credit cards in the post. That's how he funded his trips. Yeah, and he could do it then.
Yeah,
he wouldn't get away with it now, but he could do it then. So that's how he was funding it. He'd left his wife and kids. He used to come stay with us. So one particular night, we went out into Manchester with him, came back, and he was in the back of the car, legless, and he wouldn't get out. So we left him in the car. Come out the next morning, because I'm still a police officer underneath. I'm concerned about his welfare. I go out, and what's he done? He's pissed all over the back seat, and he was sick. Yeah, so get him out. He comes in the house. You know the first thing he wanted? Can of lager. So in my normal life, I wouldn't be mixing with him.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't go, yeah, toss back.
Yeah.
You know, but I've got to make as if that's great.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the mentality of some of these people. And when we went to Italy and he was there, I'd be watching the match because I'd want to see how they were doing. But he'd have his back to the match, talking to us about what was going to happen after.
Yeah, okay.
So he's spent that money.
Yeah.
I know it's money he's stolen.
Yeah.
But he's gone all that way to there. He's not even looking at
Just
the game.
looking for a tear up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's the mentality of him.
Do you understand that mentality of a football hooligan just wanting to go there, a group of lads, and have tear ups?
I don't. I understand it. I can see where it's coming from, but I don't accept it.
Yeah,
I can understand it. You know, the love is the club. For him to leave his wife and kids in favour of Tottenham Hotspur and England, and then live that life that he lived. There's what's missing there in his head.
Is there one moment in Italia 90 where you thought you were close to losing your life or close to something happening where you thought, oh my God, I've overstepped the mark here?
I think you know, if you asked me at the age I'm at now, would I go and do that? I'd have reservations. But I think being in my 30s, as I was then, early 30s, I didn't even give it a thought because I loved that job. And it was the best part of my police service, apart from the corruption side that happened further down the line. You know, I loved that job. Yeah. And I would, if you asked me, do it again if I was at that age. As daft as that might sound.
Corruption in the police? Where have you seen corruption in the police?
Well, I'm talking from my own personal perspective in relation to what happened to me at the hands of corrupt senior officers within the higher echelons of Greater Manchester Police Service, up to Assistant Chief Constable.
So the top dog?
You got Assistant Chief Constable, and then Deputy, then Chief Constable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where did you sit in that pecking order so the listeners and watchers can understand?
Where was I?
Yeah.
So I'm a Detective Constable.
Okay.
At the bottom. Yeah. Yeah. Passed me Sergeants Inspectors exams. I'd been acting Sergeant in the office as the covert sergeant, and my career was going from high. I was going places, so to speak, because I was doing what was expected of me, and I was getting the results.
And the results were to nick as many people as possible.
Well, or not to nick as many people, but if you were given
results,
if you're on an operation, like with the football hooliganism, we came back from Italia 90. It was in the papers. It'd been a great success because it prevented certain things happening. I went to the Euros in '92 in Sweden. That was deemed a great success. So when this first set Amiga up, it was in the it was by the Uniformed Operations Department. That's who had it in their ambit. But then the CID department thought, this is good, this. Let us take it over. So we moved from Uniformed Operations to CID. Okay. So we then had the head of CID running it, overall control, even though our boss, who was a great guy, who went to MI5 after. He was the one who set it up. And I worked with him when he was a detective sergeant on the Regional Crime Squad. And years later, he then set up Amiga. So he knew what he was doing. And he was given carte blanche when we were under uniformed operations to run it. But when he went under the CID, they started putting their noses in. So we then moved from football hooliganism. We still had it going on in the background, but we moved to crime operations. So I was the first undercover officer in the office to do one on the crime side. So that was in relation to drugs. So I got the first job. And it went great success.
Tell me that first job. So
that was a team from in Bolton who were knocking out amphetamines, kilos of it.
Speed.
So I
roughly what year?
Through an informant.
Early 90s.
This was 90. 1991. And I don't know if you understand how most undercover officers perhaps get introduced to villains, but it's through informants. So on that particular case, an informant who was in trouble himself put forward to the police he was willing to introduce somebody to this team in Bolton who were dealing in kilos of amphetamine. Yeah,
that makes my blood boil. By the way,
now, but you know why?
A grass.
Do you know why he's doing that?
Go on.
Do you know why he's doing that?
To get less time.
So if that was successful,
yeah,
obviously, police officer would then go and speak up at his trial, and he would get hopefully a reduced sentence.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. I totally get it, but grass.
Well, that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
yeah.
So your words as an informant. Okay.
So that your terminology is a grass, but he's an informant. Okay. In police eyes, that's what he is.
Yeah.
And they're taking a lot on to do it. I know he's a grass. But what he then did was introduce me to somebody who then believes that I was a villain.
Right, okay.
Okay. And what he then thinks also is that I've got a pal who's a record producer in Manchester, and I took him to some offices in Stretford. And we went in one day and we'd borrowed the office from a company. And behind the desk was our boss, who went to MI5 eventually. And he pretended to be the record producer.
Really?
So I've took these with me. We go in, sat down, having a drink, and he's telling them that he's having a party that weekend at his house. And he needs a bit of gear to liven it up. So, great. So I then get to order 2 kilos. And I meet him this particular morning. And they turn up to meet me with a black bin bag. It had soil on it, so they've had it buried somewhere to keep it out of the way in case they ever got a knock on the door. So they gave me the bag, and they wouldn't come in my car. They wanted to follow me. Yeah. So we go in convoy to Stretford, to this record producer's office again. But he's gone now. He's not there. And when we arrive, they stay out on the service road outside with the engine running, and all they want me to do is go and take that in, get the cash, and bring it out and give them their whack. See? So this changed the plan because I was hoping they were going to come in with me. It'd have been easier to take them out then. Yeah. So they sat outside, and they've got history for driving off and attacking. So they had to think on the feet quick. The person who's watching from the upper floors as to what's happening. And they've got police officers positioned all over the show. So the decision's made to strike, and they go for the car. And the engine revs up. They try to take off. So what they do is smash the windscreen. Car comes to a halt, smash the side windows, drag them out, pee themselves. Yeah, these are the big hard men. And they peed themselves. Because of that, what happened? But they got obviously arrested, charged with my evidence as an undercover officer. They then realise, he isn't Garry McAlinden. Yeah. He's a real police officer. Oh, and they know.
How's that make you feel? Knowing it's in your manner and your town, they've clocked you and gone, you know what? I know he's undercover old Bill.
Well, they do know now because, and I'll give you another instance in a bit where how this, you might get away with it, but you might not in another operation. But for me personally at that time, I was on a high.
Yeah.
And I say in the book, that's like me taking a drug myself.
Okay.
Because to see what went into that, and as I see it, to convince them that I was Garry McAlinden and not a police officer. And they got them drugs for me, and they came with me, and they got arrested.
Yeah.
And my evidence then sends them down. Well, you wouldn't have got them normally, So the undercover infiltration side is the last tool in the police box that they use. So they're not going to use it for someone who's pinching bottles of milk off a step. It's for people they can't normally get, because there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
The Omega unit, you years ago, when I was on the regional crime squad and our boss was doing it then, you could do bus buys. Have you heard of them?
No.
So someone might say to me, Dodge is knocking out gear. So I'd say, can you introduce me to him? Yeah. Dodge, this is Garry.
Yeah.
Want something? You go, oh, all right, yeah, I've got some spare here. This is how much it is. And we'd do it in a day. Yeah. But obviously criminals became more savvy.
Yeah.
And they know what police officers are doing now. So you have to go one step further. So the way we did it was we infiltrated the community. So I would get a house in a particular area and I'd go and live there. And I would become Garry Quinn. I'd have documentation to support that. I'd go in the pubs. I'd infiltrate that community.
Yeah.
So that if you then came with me one day, because you might say to me, I want to know who you really are, Garry Quinn.
People look, say hello to you as you walk in.
And I walk in, hiya, Quinny.
Yeah.
And I go, hiya, pal, all right. And you come in, you're thinking, hell, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right, this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he lives here.
Yeah.
And that's how it's done.
Okay. And what did you call that? Bus? What did you
call
it?
Buys.
Bus buys, okay.
Yeah, so you do it in a day.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how it used to be done years ago.
Yeah.
But you could never do that today. And like if I was to turn criminal now, I'd know what to do. If you came to me and I didn't know you from Adam, this is where I'm big on MVCs. Have you heard of them?
Go on.
Non-verbal communication.
Yeah.
So if I'm meeting you for the first time, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, is he all right, this guy, or what? And if I'm looking at you, and you're thinking about the same about me.
Yeah.
So if I'm sat in front of you like now, and I'm like looking over there, and I'm not looking at you like that, you're thinking, what's up with him?
Yeah.
Or if the vein in your neck's pumping like mad, or you say something that's not right.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to be on the ball with it. Yeah. So MVCs are very important, I think, and you've got to overcome them and control them when you're an undercover police officer. Because again, as I've said to you before, you're playing a part. Yeah, and you could slip up at any time, easily. That's why you can't go drinking, because like we know, if you drink,
who knows what's going to come out?
Who's going to? Yeah. My old sergeant said to me.
Tell me the bit about the next part of your chapter. So you're going through here, undercover, nicking people, What was the next part when you started to see there was corruption in Greater Manchester Police?
Can I just tell you about this other job?
Yeah. Go for it,
So this is a case in point now. So I was going from strength to strength, and I was always being given these undercover jobs, and I was always the first one in. When I say first one in, the way it works, I would come and meet you, might be introduced by an informant, and you take me on board. Yeah. So then I'll pal around with you for a while. Then I'll introduce somebody else who's a police officer, who's supposedly, in your mind, another mate of mine.
Mate, yeah.
Yeah. But that job would stand or fall on that first intervention. Yeah. So I was always the first one in to get the job rolling. And that sounds like I'm blowing my trumpet again. I'm not, but that's how the system works. Yeah. You won't go with 10 undercover police
No, of course
officers.
not. But you're obviously good at it.
So because it stands or falls on that.
Yeah.
And the more you do, you take what you learned from the previous one to the next one. And that's what I was doing. So this was, again, a team of guys who'd come out of prison, who'd been sent to prison for importation of drugs. And again, through an informant, I got introduced to them. Now, I had a unit on Whitworth Street West, which is round the corner from the Hacienda.
Yeah.
So you must know the Hacienda.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So obviously that nightclub and all that goes with that. So this was in the railway arches, on Whitworth Street West. And I got that. And again, you'd never trace it back to the police. But I mentioned this to these two who have now got into that I'm thinking of setting up a wine bar. So they come to see it with me. And I'm listening, and they're giving me all sorts of advice, because what's going on in their head is...
Start serving up in there.
Well, we're going to make a fortune here.
Course,
He's round the corner from the Hacienda. Yeah. So he's telling me about, put a bar there, do this. And I'm saying, I said, that's better than my idea. So all the time, drawing them in. So anyway, this particular Saturday, I bought, they were dealing in, again, amphetamine, speed, and ecstasy, the Doves.
So this is like 93, 92, 93.
Yeah, and any conversation I had with them on the phone, they'd always say the little tins and the big tins. Yeah, so that's their drugs talk on the phone.
Yeah.
Little tins are the ecstasy, big tins are the amphet. So...
the little fellas.
And the little fellas, yeah. So I bought a kilo off them, and it was the first time GMP let any money go. Yeah, they let me spend, I think it was $2,500 at the time. And I bought a kilo.
So the old bill will give you $2,500.
They gave me $2,500.
Okay.
Because normally, what they would do, unlike Joe Pistone in Donnybrook, he went into the mafia for 6 years, and all they did was log everything along them 6 years. And when the 6 years were up, they went back to the beginning, and they locked everybody up.
Yeah.
Whereas the way we run it, which is wrong, is once you get so far, they go, we better lock them up. Yeah. Instead of thinking, let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Get people further up the chain. So for the first time, they said, we'll let that money go. So I bought a kilo at an address in Blakely. And if you ever watch the video, you'd see one of these two on the step before he brings the stuff in. And he's like that. And he's being filmed. But you can see what's going on in his head. He's looking and thinking, even at that point, and I'm pally with him, he's still thinking, is everything okay? So he obviously satisfies himself, and the kilo comes in, the money comes in, I get it, we leave. How good's that for me now? Because I've now bought a kilo of illegal drugs. Yeah. I bought it off him, no one's been arrested. Yeah. So my credibility with him has gone through the roof. And I've got this wine bar. So I then order 6 kilos, for the following Saturday. And they're willing to bring it. So this is where now GMP say they're getting taken out. Yeah. So we're there on the Saturday morning. And the plan was, when they brought the gear in, the money was outside, as they thought, because I'm not going to have it in there in case someone comes in with a shooter. So they bring the stuff, I look at it, check it, everything's all right. So I go to the door and I give the signal, which they think is for my brother, who's now running with me, a partner I've got in the job, to bring the money in. It's a signal to strike. So as I'm stood there giving this signal, stood on the step, I'm looking to my right and I see the big hire truck pull up outside. All the drug squad jump out with the stab vests on. As soon as I see him jumping out, I was off up the street. Now what happens there, all the drug squad run into the wine bar. These two are sat in there with 6 kilos. So they get arrested. What would they say back at the police station? It's not ours. Yeah. It's his. Yeah. It's his whose wine bar this is. Yeah. That's what they'll commit themselves to in their story. And what I should have done was run away. Yeah. So what happens is, as I'm running off up the street, the first contingent have gone in to arrest them, but there's a support backup team, arrest team running in who don't know who I am. And they think I'm one of the targets running away. So they grab me. But I'm not aware at that point that this is what's happened. I just thought they were making it look good. So I'm struggling with them, and there was 5 of them on me. And I'm struggling to get away. And I thought, they'll let me go in a minute. Anyway, they don't. One of them kicks my legs, and my face went into onto the floor and broke my cheekbone, knocked my tooth out. And then as they're getting me up off the floor, I'm realising then they don't know who I am. So I get handcuffed. And as I'm getting handcuffed, the other 2 are being brought out of the unit. They can see now that I've been arrested. Yeah. So we all get taken to Bootle Street, and we all get on the cell block. So I'm sat there, my eyes starting to swell. And I get taken out first, as they believe, for an interview. But I'm going to hospital. And the welfare side of our office has now kicked in. They've come to get me out. But as far as them 2 are concerned, I'm still Garry McAlinden. And they're shouting to me as I was taken away, "Tell them nothing," he said. So I go to hospital, get me this seen to. And they obviously tell me it's broke. So what they then say in their interview is, it's not our gear, it's his. All right, so they commit that. Then what do they say? You know, Garry McAlinden is a police officer. So what do you think when you got told that? Mate. So they're then thinking. So
the old Bill told them that you
after they've committed themselves to, it's not ours, it's his. And they're obviously trying to save their own backside. Yeah.
Now being told.
Now they say, okay, let me tell you this. Garry McAlinden, he's a police officer. So how do you receive that? Do you think, are they telling me the truth? Yeah. And then you're thinking, what have I done with him? What have we done in the past?
Or are they double bluffing me?
Yeah, but are the police allowed to do that in an interview?
They're not.
They're not.
No, okay.
No.
But I bet they do.
You wouldn't think that at that time.
I bet the old Bill do.
Well, some of them might. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, so that is quite a thing to take in. And they're knackered then, because the next time, if they want to go to court with it, I'd be giving evidence against them, wouldn't I? And I'd be giving evidence behind a screen.
So they can still clock you?
The only people who can't see you is the public gallery. Because they'll have all their entourage come to these trials. Yeah, okay. And if you're carrying on in that sort of work, they don't want your identity to be known. So, and it's all dependent on the judge agreeing to it. If the judge says, no, you can't do it, they would have to then reconsider whether they ran the trial or not. So there are some judges who would say no.
Yeah, sod that.
As daft as that sounds.
So you're going in, the 2 fellas are clocking you, but none of his mates can see you.
But none of his mates can see you. So you are facing, you've got to face your accuser. So everybody in that court, from the barristers below, from him in the dock, can see you. But all the public gallery can do is hear your voice.
Okay.
Yeah, giving evidence.
So when you slip out after giving evidence, how do you know that any of the 2 lads' mates aren't hovering
Because
around.
the court would be cleared first.
So everyone leaves the court before you?
And where I would come in is through the judges' quarters.
Okay.
You don't go out through the main door.
So surely they go to the judges' quarters and clock you coming in?
No, they can't, because I'm going into the office.
Yeah.
That the judge would come through to get into court. I'd go through there, and then down, when I want to leave, I go down into the car park.
Yeah.
And I can get out.
Mate, how much, I'm not being funny, how much paranoia was kicking in as you were going deeper and deeper into this undercover
Well,
world?
when this all the problems started later on, I gave trial evidence in another trial. I came back in the afternoon to give me evidence behind the screen. And as I walked in, someone shouted at me to get back, and someone had moved the screen. And everybody in the public gallery saw me.
Mate.
And this is a list of things that happened. And then we got followed from the court by a car as we drove off, and the driver had to shake them off. Yeah, and these are things that my family had to contend with, which GMP didn't assist me with whatsoever.
So Greater Manchester Police weren't protecting their own?
No.
In any of this?
No, I'll tell you who they're protecting. They're protecting a detective chief inspector who was bent, who was later convicted of numerous offences of dishonesty, 20-odd offences of deception.
What was his name?
In his big Mason, Ken Seddon.
Ken Seddon?
Yeah.
Is he still about today?
He lives in Australia now. How's he got citizenship for there with convictions?
So he was, what role was he playing in Greater Manchester Police?
Right, so if I get onto that subject, I'll have to just tell you the forerun for that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing all these jobs as an undercover officer, and I'm getting success after success. Commendations, I was being put in for commendations, left, right and centre, because I'm not blowing my trumpet again, but I dedicate myself to do it right.
Well, one, you're a ballsy character. Two, you're getting results, right?
Getting results,
Getting
results, yeah.
What was that? What did you say? Commendations?
Commendations.
Give an example.
So if you had success, like I did another job, a guy was found murdered on Princess Road, not far from Main Road's old ground. New Year's Day, 1991. Norman Clark. Find him early hours of New Year's Day, dead on the footpath. Think he's had a heart attack. So anyway, do a post-mortem, find he's got a hole in his ear and in his brain. So what then happens is information comes in that a member of the travelling fraternity has killed him. Yeah. So we get tasked with infiltrating this travelling fraternity, who some of them lived in Ancoats. So long story short, we got into them. Yeah. And eventually get into this lad who is suspected of killing Norman Clark. And when I was undercover officer, my story was I was an armed robber. Yeah. And at that time on Crime Watch UK, a security guard had been murdered. And the photo fits looked like me and my partner, who pretended to be my brother. So I ran on that and let him think it was us who'd done this murder with the... And he used to say to me that ever since he'd killed Norman Clark on Princess Road, when he went to bed at night, he had the angel of death coming to him. And he'd wake up just before the angel of death grabbed him. And he said to me, I can see the angel of death stood next to you. We're brothers, because he thought I'd killed somebody. And his story was, what we got on tape eventually, because he took us to the house where he'd burnt his clothes after he'd killed him. He said he was on his way home that night from a party, and he bumped into Norman Clark and asked him for a light. Norman Clark told him to F off and went to push him. And he said he retaliated and went to punch him, but I had a Phillips screwdriver in my hand. And as he swung, it went through his ear into his brain. And that's what killed him. So by infiltrating him, we got recovered his clothing, and he was convicted on that evidence. So
do you remember how long he got?
He got convicted of manslaughter because they accepted that he was retaliating, to being pushed. He got 8 years.
It's not a lot, is
Nothing.
it?
No. But it was better than him having walked around, having done it.
Yeah.
And no one had been any the wiser.
Yeah.
So for that, we got commendation off the chief constable. So what you get is you get written up that this was what the job was about. This is what they did. This is the dangers they put themselves into. Many hours knocking about in Ancoats, in pubs with these people who were very violent, would attack people at the drop of a hat. And you're in that environment with them on your own. So you've got no one with you who's going to get you out if it went pear-shaped. But eventually, when we got him on his own and we were knocking about with him, we got the story. So we got commendations for that.
But what I keep going back to the accommodation. What are you getting? You getting a medal?
You get a certificate.
So you get for all that. You get a certificate.
You get a certificate which says Chief Constable's Commendation.
No one knows about it apart from people inside the
thing. And you go to see the chief, and you have a picture took, shakes your hand. Okay. There's your certificate, and it's all framed.
Yeah. Okay.
So over your service. Some people might not get no commendations, but
what sort of wage were you on at this time? You're going undercover. This is quite a risky job. Were you on double bubble or anything?
You didn't get paid any extra. No. I could have got paid the same for sitting in an admin office as an admin officer.
You're joking, man.
Yeah, with shiny ass trousers, and got paid the same.
But you were doing it for the buzz.
I was doing. I loved it, but you didn't. People think, you must be making a fortune.
Yeah.
And I'd be away overnight in places, and they'd say, pay me up to 10 o'clock, and then I'd be not getting paid till the next morning at 9 o'clock. But I'm there on the job, living in a house where I'm infiltrating the community.
So were you married at this time?
Yeah.
Do you have kids and married? And you were separate to your kids?
So no, well,
Were your kids and family with you in this different house?
No,
okay.
No.
So how are you living a double life then?
Very, very hard.
Yeah,
and I was a bit blinkered because I loved the job. I mean, I loved my wife and the kids. My own thought about them was to protect them. Yeah. So I wanted to keep them out of the way as much as I could. But obviously, I didn't tell my wife everything. Because what would happen then if I told her too much? She'd be thinking, what are you doing that for?
Who does tell the wife everything?
Well, no, but you don't go saying. You don't go telling her who you're knocking about.
Yeah, of course.
And what they might be capable of.
Yeah, of course.
Because it put the fear of God in them.
Yeah.
So I never divulged a lot of it. I kept it to myself, and just ran with it. But I was happy that I could have gone through my entire service there. How much time I would have had? I had 6 years in total as an undercover officer, and come out the other end, and then been deployed where I should have been deployed and not where they put me after the trouble I had. Yeah, so that wouldn't have been a problem. And what rotted my brains later was not being an undercover officer, but it was how the system treated me.
Okay.
And what they did.
When did you start realising the system was all wrong? How old were you at the time when you left being an undercover cop after 6 years? Were you like 36, 35?
30, yeah, perhaps 37.
37,
like that.
okay.
Yeah.
And then when that come to an end?
But what happened was the guy who went to MI5 service, MI5.
This is the fellow you liked.
The great guy.
Top man.
And I can't name him.
Okay.
But
why not?
Because he's still in the.
Still in the.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And he's protected because he's been on the security services.
Okay.
And I wouldn't do. So he leaves in '93. And we're all wondering who's coming in his place. So who arrives? Ken Seddon, who has never been an undercover officer. Yeah. Doesn't have the first clue about what it's about, but loves to go drinking, the big party animal. Okay, so he takes over. So let me give you an example. When I said to you before, we infiltrate the community. So I would have a house or a flat in a particular area, which would be registered to me, Garry McAlinden. I'd have a car that was bought from the auctions, registered to me, Garry McAlinden, because believe it or not, there's been police officers, and some of these teams I've knocked about with had contacts within GMP who could do police national computer checks. So if I had a car and it was registered to the police, but I was using it as an undercover car, they'd soon find out. Yeah. So you've got to cover every eventuality. So that's how the system was under the guy from security service when he ran it. Yeah, and I wholeheartedly believe that is why we had the success we had, because we did everything right. Yeah. And it was on a need-to-know basis whenever these operations were run, because there's corrupt police officers. Yeah. So what happens when he takes over, he starts buying all the cars from his mate in Oldham, from a garage. And he's called Colin Heaney, his mate. So he buys a Saab convertible, a Jag, and a red Ford Sierra 4x4, and they're all bought from him. My question is, who's checked this guy from Oldham, the garage guy? Who is he talking to, saying, I'm supplying these cars now to the police for undercover operations? Yeah. Has he been vetted? No, he hasn't, because that can compromise undercover officers. But they're all bought from him, and I'll say now, I know what was going on. He was buying them from him, telling GMP, we're paying this much for them.
Get a backhander. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what he was doing. The houses, as I said, were registered to undercover officers. He comes in one day and says, the flat down in the Salford, I want all the keys handed in because the regional crime squad want to use it on a job. So everybody gives the keys in. One lad who's on annual leave comes back, isn't privy to this conversation, and goes to the flat on the Monday morning, and he's trying to get in, and it's locked on the inside. So he's banging on the door. Eventually, guy opens the door in his underpants, and it's Ken Seddon's brother, who's not a police officer, he's a fire officer, and he's living at the flat, rent-free, with his wife. Now, who's paying for that, ultimately? The taxpayer, yeah? Now, if I'd have done that, put one of my aunties in there, my uncle, said, have a few weeks living there, rent-free, I'd have got sacked. He also takes his family in the drug squad's caravanette camper van, which is an observation vehicle, takes them on holiday to Italy in it, and gets clocked going out by customs. Yeah. So these are the things that he gets reported for further down the line.
How do you report someone like that? If he's your boss, how are you reporting it? Were you getting wound up at the time?
I was getting wound up because I could see things that were going on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what's happening here? Anyway, his first thing when he took over was, I don't want any H clones in this office. When he's saying H, he's on about the person before him. Yeah. I was happy to be a H clone because he taught me everything I knew.
Yeah.
And I'd had great success with that knowledge.
So where's this fella coming from then? He ain't coming. Where's he coming from, Snedden? Where was he before?
He was he used to run the Holmes computer, which is a Home Office serious crime.
Okay.
It's a system the police have, Holmes. So he's never done undercover work, but he's a. I didn't like him from the first time I ever met him.
Was it just you didn't like him, or was it other fellas in the?
I think I hated him the most.
Okay.
Yeah. But what he didn't like about me was, and what he was trying to do was manipulate that department to run for his own personal gain. Yeah. By putting his brother in a flat, go and live there. Yeah. Buying them cars. We had an admin sergeant who was a great guy. Could never be an undercover officer, but was an admin guy. And he had his finger on everything in that office. Great. It ran smoothly. What Seddon did, he got him in one day, and he brought another sergeant with him, Seddon, who was bent. And he said, I want you to show Mike everything you do in the office. And he says, why? He says, because you're going. And he got him in place instead, right? So the story goes, he was getting as much overtime as he wanted in the office, and he was then paying Seddon every month so much back.
Yeah.
He was given carte blanche to work what he wanted. Yeah. That guy, when Seddon gets arrested for down the line, books himself into a mental ward, and he's dead now.
Yeah.
But that's what he did. So you see how it was being run for his own. But I think he knew in me that I wasn't going to play ball.
Yeah.
So this particular day,
did you challenge him?
Well, so this particular day, we were doing the England game, and I was involved with a team of Ram Raiders, who were renowned in the area. They'd already run over a policeman when they were escaping on one occasion, and this was a job I did without an informant. Yeah, so that's how much more upmarket it was.
Yeah.
So we had intelligence on them, where they were going, where they were training in the gym. They were taking steroids, so they were pumping themselves up, and then they'd put ski masks on and go and do ram raids.
Yeah.
So they were quite intimidating. But they went to a gym in Lee. Now, when this operation was put together, I could never go in as a ram raider with them. Why? Because if they were to run somebody over while I'm with them and kill them, and we knew what they were up to, imagine how that had hit the press. So I had to go above them. So I went in as a handler of stolen property. That's the part I was playing. So I had a Maserati car. I had a nice house in Lee. And I started going to the gym where they were. And they were in there every afternoon training. So I'd go in, and I got all of a load of stuff that we got cheap. And I went in and was selling it in the gym with the owner there.
Like what?
Stereo systems, all sorts of electrical gear. Yeah. But we were picking it up at the right price, which allowed us to sell it cheap. But the inference was it was stolen. So they're in the gym as I'm doing this, and I'm getting on a treat with the owner. When as I left one day, they're all at the window looking, and they could see me getting in the Maserati. So I planted a seed now that I'm bent because I'm selling stuff. I've obviously got a few quid because I've got a Maserati, and I'm in the area. So that goes on for a few months, and then eventually I get talking to one of them, and long story short, I get into them. So they start bringing all the gear to me, see, that they're knocking off. So But this is 3 miles down the road from where I live. I did this job. So how mad's that?
It's dangerous, yeah.
Mad.
Of course it is, yeah.
So there was occasions when they'd ring me and I'd be at home and they'd say, well, I've done such like, we've got this gear, and I'd have to get from my house to the flat where I was supposed to be living, get everything switched on, and they'd come and deliver the stuff that they had. And I'd have everything on audio, video. What great evidence is that? But these are the lengths I was going to make the job successful. But you can imagine how it went down at home when I'm telling a little bits about why I got to shoot out all of a sudden.
Yeah. Were you lying to your wife?
I was a bit thingy with the truth.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is that because you wanted to protect the missus?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew if you told her what was really happening,
it's just more panic, isn't it?
Yeah,
of course.
She didn't sleep at best of times, but especially when she found out afterwards. But anyway, so I'm involved in that job as H leaves and he takes over. So he gets me in and he says to me, we're going to invoke tenure of office, which in the police means you've been in here too long.
Yeah.
This is I'm halfway through that job. And this is because I won't play ball. And he thinks, obviously, this guy's not going to. So I said, what? He says, and what the normal progression would be, after having done what I've done as an undercover officer, which would go on the welfare side. So that I would then not be doing undercover jobs, but I'd be giving my experience to up and coming undercover officers, which makes sense, doesn't it? He said to me, I'm off next week. Think about where you're going to go. Otherwise, you'll be told where you're going. So I said, what about the welfare? He says, no, you can't stick in this department anymore. So I thought, and he goes, and he cushions it by saying, you've been nominated for the Queen's Police Medal, right? Which is, you get that, obviously, in the New Year's honours. Yeah. So he cushions it with that. So, and he's also saying, my partner, who I call Reg, who did 2 years as an undercover officer, and I did 6. And then he asked to come off because it was getting too much for him. He had a son who was severely ill, so he had to come off and he went on the welfare side. But the jobs we did together, like the one when I got my cheekbone broke and all them, were great success. So we'd been put in for the QPM by the guy who left before him for our work. So he hadn't done it, but he's telling me because he's aware of it. So he goes off for a week. So I'm thinking on that weekend, I thought, something's not right here. So what I do on the Monday morning, this is how strongly I felt about it. I went to police GMP headquarters to see the head of the CID. Bear in mind, I shouldn't go to police stations, police courses. Yeah. I went directly there and I sat outside his office. And as I'm waiting, another chief super comes past, Albert Yates. Dave James is chief superintendent of CID operations. Albert Yates, chief superintendent of admin of the CID. So he sees me and goes, what are you doing here, Gary? I says, I've come to see Mr. James about what's happened on Friday. So he says, come with me. I go in his office, I tell him, he says, you're not going anywhere. So this contradicts said straight away. So someone's telling lies, aren't they? So he's off for a week. When he comes back, I'm sent to Coventry, right? Doesn't speak to me. Yeah. But I'm involved in this ram raiding job, which carries on for a few months. So eventually, they all get arrested. And it's hailed a great success, get all this gear back. And they're all put on remand at Strangeways, these lot. So I have to spend a month then, on my own, transcribing all the audio videotapes for the evidence for court. So I do that on my own. Then I go back to our private unit, which it's like here. It's a unit in an industrial estate, which the outside world is a business, but we're the undercover unit working from there. So I go there and he says, I get summoned to see him. So I've got to be there for 2:00 in the afternoon. He's got this big fancy office with glass all around it, big desk. I can see him as I get to the waiting room outside. And I'm sat waiting. 2:00 comes, don't call me in. I get called in at 2:45, right? So he's kept me waiting 45 minutes. And I go in, and I'd made the decision before I went in to covertly record it. Now, some people will question the morality of that, but what I'll say to you is, if I was telling you now, or anybody else, he said this to me, and he said that, he'd say, no, he didn't. No, I didn't. He's mistaken. It's like what's going on in the post office now with the CEO who's just been sacked. He's saying, senior civil servant told him to slow down the payments to the sub postmasters. Yeah. And there's a big dispute about what was said. There's no doubt about what he said to me that day because I've got it on tape. So I go in, sit there, and he says, my anger with you has only just subsided. He says, I've never thought about what I was going to do with somebody as much as I have with you. Right? I did think about sending you down the road. While I'm saying this to you, what picture does that put in your head? It's going to stitch me up.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he says, it doesn't matter who you go and speak to because they'll always side with me because that's the way the system is.
And you've got all this recorded?
Yeah. Yeah. What does he mean by that? He's a big Mason, this guy, as is the head of the CID, Dave James, big Masons. And he says to me, it doesn't matter who you go and speak to, they'll always side with me because that's the way the system is.
Oh, mate.
So I thought, now if I'd have come out and said that to you,
no one would believe you.
You wouldn't believe it, would you?
Course, yeah,
you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So then I think, right. So he says, and obviously I'm not now going anywhere because.
Were you teeing him up as well as it's been recorded?
Well,
or was he splurting out the stuff himself?
He was obviously wanting to punch me in the face because he says, not only have you been to see your chief superintendent, you've been to see mine. Yeah. But he says, my anger has only just subsided with you. Yeah. But he couldn't get rid of me then because I've upset the apple cart because Albert Yates, the chief superstar, I'm not going anywhere. He'd have had me out that day if he could. So he's got to go along with me now. So anyway, and at that time, a big job's come in. And it has connections to like the John Stalker affair. You know who John Stalker was? Deputy Chief Constable.
Go on.
Who went on the shoot to kill inquiry in Ireland. He was Deputy Chief Constable of Great Manchester Police. And at the point, do you know the story in Ireland where there was a shoot to kill policy with the RUC at the time in Ireland where they were just killing people willy-nilly, shooting them, where they could have arrested them. Yeah. So he was sent by Herman, the Chief Constable, to go and do a shoot to kill inquiry and get to the bottom of it. But what they wanted was just everything papered over. Yeah. Whereas John Stalker got to the nitty-gritty of it. And there was the hay shed murders where Ty was called. There was 3 guys shot in a hay shed. But what he found out was, at the time they were shot, there was surveillance going on. So there was visual surveillance on that hay barn, also audio. So they would have everything that was said, and what warnings were given before
shooting. Okay.
Yeah. John Stalker gets to know about it, so he demands from the RUC that they release it so that he can listen to it. Yeah. He keeps pushing, keeps getting knockbacks. So at the point where he's at the final part where he's going to get hold of it, he gets suspended because he's supposed to have been, there's a story come out that he's been associating with villains. Yeah. So he's set up, and it was believed by Masons in Great Manchester Police. Yeah. Because of the seriousness of what he was going to be divulging to the.
So are you saying that the Freemasons are there, once you're a Freemason, you're there in the Great Manchester Police, you can cover anything up you want?
Well, if you look at the oaths of being a police officer, you swear an oath to the Queen. You compare that to the oath of being a Mason.
Which is what? Tell me.
Well, I can't because it's so long-winded.
Yeah.
But what it's saying is if you see the hailing sign from a fellow Mason who's in trouble, they have a sign that they can give. You must assist them in every way you can.
Okay.
So if you're in trouble, you as a fellow Mason must help them.
It doesn't matter
unless it's for murder.
Unless they're bent or not, you still got
unless it's for murder or treason, and then it's up to you whether you do or you don't.
Bloody hell.
Right? This is what this oath says.
And this is going on in the old bill, is it?
Oh, well, if you're a Mason, the CID in Great Manchester Police was renowned for Masons, being in the Masonic Lodge. And on one occasion, I'm not sure, it was Manchester News, some paper, they put outside one of the lodges in Manchester, Greater Manchester Police's headquarters sign above the door of the Masonic Lodge, said this is where promotions are decided.
Wow.
Yeah. So you've got Ken Seddon's a Mason.
Yeah.
Because I know he was, because I was in his drawer one day looking for some file. There was his apron and his daggers. Yeah. And his gloves, all in the drawer. The head of the CID, Dave James, I always thought was a decent guy, ran a nest of Masons wherever he went. Yeah. Now he's in charge of Omega. So obviously, I'm then in this situation where he said this to me, and I'm back out now. Yeah. I'm now available for jobs again.
So he said all this stuff to you. You've got it all recorded.
But I know my cards are marked.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But he's been forced to keep me for a while. So this job comes in.
But you say your cards are marked. His cards marked as well.
By who?
By you, because you got it all recorded.
Well, I have, yeah.
So
I don't divulge that.
What were you thinking at that time? Did anyone know you had this recorded apart from you?
No.
No. How long did you have that in your back pocket for before it all come out?
A little bit further down the line when other things happened.
Okay.
And my life was turned upside down. Because I also recorded other conversations as well.
With the same fella?
Not with him,
yeah,
with others.
Okay.
Who were involved in this so-called conspiracy against me. Yeah.
So did you find that once they knew you were being disruptive or just having morals, that you were just like, hold on, they were after you to get you out? Did you find that the Masons all stuck together to push you out? Or was it just him?
I just thought, at that time, I'm thinking, what is going on here? You know, this department was so unique and so fantastic, and the results were great. Why have you put somebody like him,
right? Okay,
who I can obviously see is bent?
Yeah.
Why have you got him running it? Because if this hit the public knowledge about what he was doing, letting his brother live in a flat that is paid for by the police authority, who shouldn't be there. The other point about that is his brother was a fireman. Now, there were villains that lived in that area. And had he been seen leaving that flat one day in a blue shirt and his pants as a fireman, they wouldn't think, oh, he's a fireman. They could think he's a cop.
He's old Bill, yeah.
So had that not been discovered about his brother living there, and his brother had lived there for however weeks, months, and then left, then they go, you can use that again now.
Yeah, okay.
It's compromised.
Yeah, okay.
He's compromising.
Yeah, okay.
That's my point. And I'm sure, because you won't believe this, I'll jump ahead, but he goes before the chief about this further down the line.
To his boss?
To the chief constable. He gets disciplined. After an 18-month inquiry about these things he's been doing, apart from his criminal side that comes out later, he goes in front of the chief, which is what would happen in the police. If you get disciplined, you go before the chief constable.
And what role, just for the listeners and myself here, what role was he in the ladder? So the chief is your top dog. Where was he sitting?
He was a detective chief inspector.
Okay, so where's that sitting? Just like a couple below?
You've got DC, sergeant, inspector, chief inspector, superintendent, chief super, assistant chief constable, deputy chief.
Okay, so the top dog, where was he sitting? Where's your man sitting?
He's about fifth one up.
So he's still powerful. He's a powerful man.
Well, as a chief inspector in the police, you've got a lot of clout. You know, I mean, he was in charge of Greater Manchester Police's elite covert operations department, which, you know, any shit about that department could close it down.
Yeah, okay. So what things were bubbling up in the background then? You had all your bits and pieces. Was there other bits going on that people were clocking that he was
we all the undercover officers met one day at one of the flats and we were discussing this, and they were saying he's ruining it. You know, what's he doing? What's he about? And someone suggested that day about an anonymous letter to be sent to the force. That's how strongly people were feeling about it. Now, my point is, what did you say there? An anonymous letter to be sent to the force. Okay. To let them know what he's doing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was talked about one day when they were all there as a group. But you know, bear in mind the jobs that were done in that department. If there was any sniff of corruption, all those jobs would be looked at again.
Yeah, okay.
Because they'd all be deemed to be. What if some jiggery pokery's been going on that? You know, it's not clean, is it? It's not watertight. So, and at that time now, I'm staying. So another job comes in, high profile from the regional crime squad, and it's a family in Manchester. Yeah. Big family, and they're dealing, waiting for importation from Spain. Yeah. So of ecstasy. Okay. Yeah, but they're also dealing in heroin. Yeah. So, and this has started while I'm going on with this shite about having gone to see the chief super, and then he wants to see me. He tells me what he says. So the undercover officer who's chosen for this job meets the informant, and the informant doesn't like him, isn't willing. And it is a big decision. I know you said he was a grass, but with this family, you know, he's looking at nasty consequences if they found out. Yeah. So he, for some reason, didn't like this lad and didn't want to do it with him. So I'm now back in the fore. So they say to me, would you want you to do this job? Meet the informant, see if you get on with him. So I said, well, hang on a minute, because the rule was every undercover job you do, you have to get a new legend. A legend being new identity.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So that legend would always be my first name, Garry, and I would only change the surname.
Yeah, okay.
Because it was easy for me to remember my first name. And I'd pick a surname, that would always be a nickname. Yeah. So I said before, Gary Macalinden, I'd be Macca.
Macca, yeah.
Macca. Okay. And that's what I'd say. when I went on football, Macco.
Yeah.
And then Quinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Quinny's, I didn't tell that story before, but he was my mate at City Centre who got killed one night. So I used his name. So I said, well, hang on, I've not got a new legend. He said, it doesn't matter on this occasion, right? So here we are changing the policy again and the rules. He says to me, this is an inspector in the office who's under Ken 7.
Okay.
Don't matter. On this occasion, he says, you can use your same name that you used on the Ram Raiders, who are now sat on their arse in strange ways on remand for this job. And what we'll do is, if you're successful and you get in, you'll introduce another police officer. The evidence will start there, and no one will ever know you're a police officer. The only person who will know is a judge at the trial, not the defence. So I thought, I can't argue with that. I'm trying to get my feet back under the table. So I agree. So I use Gary Quinn, right? And I meet the informant, get on like house on fire. What do? I go and live in Newquay because this team's from Manchester. If I was living anywhere in Manchester, they'd be able to check me out. Yeah. So I get a house in Newquay, and that's where I'm living. And I get introduced to the main guy, and we get on all right. So everything's running. So further down the line, I introduce the next police officer. So he comes in. We're waiting now for the main target's brother, who's out in Spain, dealing with the importation of ecstasy. We're waiting for that to happen. So I can't just disappear off the planet. I've got to keep showing my face. Yeah. So while I am going with the other officer I've introduced, he's buying heroin off the main guy, and I'm there while it's all happening. Long story short, further down the line, all comes to fruition. And there's a dozen firearms recovered, drugs, large amounts of money, and they're all arrested. They get put on remand where? Strange ways. So what do when they get there? On remand, start talking to the Ram Raiders. What are you in here for? Undercover job. Yeah. Oh, I Gary Quinn. So I'm known as an undercover officer to the Ram Raiders now. I should never have been known to the second lot. And they should never have gone on remand to Strange Ways. So what happens then? I'm at court giving evidence in the Ram Raiding trial. And I come in at lunchtime, get behind the screen, and I'm waiting for the judge to come in. There's two blokes stood down in the well of the court looking at me. And they're looking at me like writing something down, but I'm not saying anything. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? So when the judge comes in, one of the barristers stands up and asks for the jury to be sent out because he wants to make some points. So that happens. What he then asked me is, was you, during Operation, whatever it was for the Ram Raiders, ever involved in an Operation Bluebell? So I knew what was coming then. Bluebell is this team from Manchester. Yeah. So the way he asked me the question was, during the Ram Raiding job, were you ever involved in a job called Bluebell? I wasn't. I didn't get involved in it till afterwards. So I said no. Yeah. He asked me 3 specific questions. I answered them all to the negative because of the way he asked me. Yeah. So he then says to the judge, I want this case thrown out. He said, this man here is a total liar. I've got a file here for Operation Bluebell. There's a statement here with his name on it, Gary Quinn. Yeah. How can we trust what he's saying? So the judge looks at what I've said and agrees that I've answered it honestly. But no one's fooled. I'm the same guy now in both jobs. Yeah. What that does is it blows up for the informant whose now life's in danger. They pay him off and he clears off to Portugal to get out of the way. What did they offer me at my house? An attack alarm on my house, right? So I think, and there's already been corrupt police officers involved with this lot who were, for example, doing PNC checks, national computer checks on jewellers' cars so that they found out where they lived and they could go and sit on them in the morning when they came out with the stock and attack them. Yeah. So what goes that to me if I've got an attack alarm on my house going through to a police station where there might be corrupt police officers? Because this is where it's coming on top now for me and my family. So I finished giving evidence and my head was in a bucket, right? And I went sick. And I was off for 11 months. 11 months. And at that time, I went from 17 stone to 12. Ended up in the heart care unit because my heart was coming out of my chest, and that was through Prozac. Yeah. I had to go in hospital to have a camera up my jacksie because they thought I had cancer. But my health deteriorated over that 11-month period. And whilst I'm off, An anonymous letter goes to the Force and to Manchester Evening News, to the crime correspondent, Steve Panter, who was well connected to certain senior officers. So, and I'm talking in hindsight now because of what I know, but the story never hits the Manchester Evening News, so it's covered up there. It goes to the Force, to the head of the CID. What do? They don't look at what's supposedly in that letter about what Ken Seddon's been up to.
Yeah.
They focus on who sent this.
Oh, mate.
Who sent this letter? You know what they did?
Go on.
Because I got, where they put me, when I did come back to work after 11 months, they stuck me in a cellar of the headquarters, in a room with no windows, copying videotapes. That's where they put me. And I got in with a guy from Photographic, who, when I'm telling my story, he says, I remember this, he says. He said they brought a letter in one day and told me to take photographs of these fingerprints on it. There was no crime numbers on it.
Yeah. And
I was told, you've seen that, but you haven't seen it. So unofficially and illegally, they fingerprinted the letter to try and find out, because there's no crime committed in relation to the letter. But they've gone to those lengths to find out who'd sent it. Yeah.
Who did send the letter?
Well, who got blamed for it?
You did.
I did.
Yeah. Who did send the letter?
I don't know. I've got a good idea.
So you didn't send the letter?
No.
Not at all?
No.
How many of you were thinking about wanting to send this letter?
The whole group when we were in the flat one day.
6, 10, 8? What are we talking?
There was about 6 there.
And you're all thinking the same thing?
All thinking the same.
We need to bubble up
What's he up to?
Yeah,
this
okay.
guy, he's going to ruin it.
Yeah, okay.
But I get...
So one of those
because of the run-ins I've had with him,
yeah.
I get the finger pointed,
yeah. And
it's me. So what they then do is they set the sights on me to ruin my career.
Okay.
Right?
How old are you roughly at this time?
Like I said, 36, 37.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm off for 11 months.
When you got off for 11 months, did you say, I can't handle this now? What was going on in your mind at that point?
I know now.
Did you have the fear at that point?
I was diagnosed with what was it? With PTSD.
Yeah.
Because of not having been this is what I want to stress, not as a result of being a undercover police officer.
Yeah.
I dealt with that, no problem. And I could have done it for years without a problem. The PTSD is because of what they did.
Yeah.
And how it was ruining my life. Because I was going places. All of a sudden I'm going nowhere.
So were you saying what they did and keeping your name as Gary Quinn for too big?
Yeah, so that ruined, that put my family in danger.
Okay.
But they didn't do nothing. And they covered a load of other stuff up and didn't tell me
How
things.
frustrating is it for you as a copper, doing your best, knowing that there's bent coppers above you and there's nothing you can do?
Yeah. I heard when Peter Blexley was on the telly the other morning with the lady whose 2 daughters were murdered, and she's talking about how we need to get more in the police willing to speak up and speak out about corruption. But she says at the moment, anybody who is a whistleblower who speaks out, they get a target on the back, and you become a target, and that's true. And I don't know what it's like today.
What did you notice at the time of you being a target? What was actually happening towards you?
Well, I wasn't going anywhere. I was off the Christmas card list from that moment on. Like I say, I was financially ruined after 11 months.
Were they still paying you full whack?
I went on half pay.
Half pay, okay.
Yeah, and had I have stayed off any longer, I would have been on no pay at all.
Statutory or something. So really small.
And unresolved PTSD.
When did that letter come, that anonymous letter come on the desk within your 11 months of you being off?
A couple of weeks after I'd gone off.
So do you think that someone has teed it up so it looks like it was you?
It could be me. Yeah. I don't know who sent it.
Have you got an inkling?
I know who was there on the day.
On the day of when it landed?
When we were all discussing it.
Okay.
Who was there that day?
But there were 6 men there.
There were 6 there.
So there's 1 of 6.
One of them. Yeah.
And you've got an inkling who it is?
I've got an idea.
Do you reckon he was doing the right thing for the right cause, or do you reckon he timed it right that you gone off, that letter needs to go out, and it could be seen like it looks like it's you being bitter or PTSD? Or
I'm the perfect person to put for it, aren't I?
Yeah.
Because of the run-ins I've already had with him, and the stands I've already made. And bear in mind, I've also got them recordings now about what he said.
So in that 11-month period, you've still got the recordings, but you haven't given it to anyone?
No.
So you've held that in the back pocket as your ace card?
Because other things happened.
Okay, so when you came back to work, you had that in your back pocket, recordings, and then what else happened when you come back?
Well, obviously, I didn't want to come back. But financially I was ruined. I had to cash in insurance policies I had just to pay the mortgage. And my wife's saying, "How are we going to pay the mortgage?" And I said, "I'll give a toss. I haven't done out wrong. Why should I be worried?" But bear in mind, I'd be in the night, I'd get out of bed, try and get into the wardrobes. That sounds daft. Yeah. But to me, that was a door. I was trying to get out. So it shows that was playing on my mind. I cut myself off from everybody. So I didn't speak to anybody, in any friends, any family. I became very introverted and just kept myself to myself, which obviously I'm a different person now to who I used to be. So I've got young kids who are looking at me thinking, what's up with my dad?
Yeah.
What's happened to him?
And there was no support at all from
No support.
Nothing.
No, nothing.
Not a phone call. How you doing, mate? What's happening? Here's some support. Go and see psychiatrist.
Nothing whatsoever. So that's something you have to deal with on your own.
Yeah.
And obviously, financially, I'm ruined. So then they come and say, "I've got these things that we can offer you." So I look at it. One's a video imaging unit. One's taking statements for civil litigation, and one was computers. I've no knowledge of computers.
Yeah.
I don't want to be going out in the public taking statements. I don't know who I'm going to come across. Yeah. And the other one, video imaging unit. So I had to accept that.
Yeah.
So and this was just before the Christmas now. So this is where it gets important now. So this is just before the Christmas of, what year was it? 95. Because I'd gone sick February 95. So Christmas 95, I get this. So I said, I'll accept video imaging unit, but I'm not coming back before Christmas because I can't deal with all the party stuff that's going on. The way my head was. Yeah. So I'll come back in January. So I got the date then, 22nd of January, I was coming back to the video. And they said, a lot of work's gone into this, is to get you back to work. A lot of people, put a lot of thought into it. I've got no car. I've lost my car. And I'm cycling. So, prior to this, so there's a bit of an end in sight now financially because I know I'm going back to work. So I've not spoke to anybody in the undercover unit for 11 months. I ring Reg, which isn't his real name, the lad who played my brother. I rang him at home Christmas to tell him I'm coming back, just to apologise for not having spoke to him. And we have a few niceties. Then he says to me, "Have you got it?" And I said, "Have I got what?" He said, "Queen's Police Medal." So I said, "No." It'd always been a joke between us, when we were told. He says, "I have." So he'd got it in the New Year's Honours for 96. He got the Queen's Police Medal. Yet that nomination was a joint one, and I hadn't got it. So what would you think? Bear in mind, I've just said to you, I was always the first man in.
Yeah.
I did 6 years. He did 2 years, and he always came in second on the jobs we did. So why has he got the Queen's Police Medal and I haven't? So that was my dilemma at that time. So from being told I'm going back to work now, financially I'm doing all right, I'm going to be okay again. He says I've got the QPM, I haven't got it.
Yeah.
So Christmas again at home was horrendous. And my head was in a bucket again. So anyway, January 22nd comes, Monday morning, I get on my bike, I cycle to 8 miles to JMP headquarters. Get there early, get a shower, get my clothes on, go to the reception at the video imaging unit. There's a woman on the counter. I said, "I'm Garry Rogers." I said, "I'm due to start this morning. I've got to see Ian Jakeman." She went, "Ian Jakeman?" She said, he's not here till lunchtime. He's been on holiday to America. He's the person who's supposed to be looking after me. This is how much thought's gone into me coming back to work. So I had to hang around for all them hours, waiting for him to come at lunchtime to be able to take me on board. But I was ready to get back on my bike and go home again. Yeah. So the good thing about me choosing that job was, yes, I was in the basement at Chester House in a room with no windows. My only job was any cases for court with video evidence. I would have to produce 10 copies on a big machines, for court. Imagine sat in a room with no windows. And I give this analogy. It was like having been managing director of a company. Yeah. And then you become the janitor. Yeah. No disrespect to janitors. Yeah. I'm just saying, I was up there and now I'm
How long did you last when you come back?
I did. What did I do in there? I did 4 years.
Did 4 years?
Yeah.
How long was it until you got the evidence of all this recording for Sudden for it to come out?
A bit further down the line.
Okay.
Because lots more.
When and why did you have the balls and courage to then bring it out? What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
Because I found a report in my personal file by chance, which had been put there 8 years earlier, saying I was corrupt, not to be trusted.
What, saying you were corrupt?
Yeah. I found in my personal file. Every officer has a personal file.
Well, that you can't see.
Well, this is what happens.
Yeah.
You have a personal file, personnel department. So what would normally happen is you might ring them and say, I'm such and such a body, police officer, can I come and see my personal file? They say, yeah, come in an hour. They take stuff out that they don't want you to see and give it you. You'd have a look, give it them back, put it all back in. This day I go personally to personnel. And there's a woman who's just started in the office. And I said, can I have a look at my personal file? She went, come in. She sat me down at a desk like this. She gave it me. It was about that thick because I had 20 odd years in there. She went, anything you want photocopying, let me know. So I said, oh, thanks. So I opened it up. It was like going back in time. It was my application for the cadets with my dad's writing on it because my dad died Christmas Day when he was 42 when I just started in the police. So it would like take me back in time, you know. I worked my way through it. As I'm getting towards 3/4 way through, there's this A4 brown envelope. And on the back of it, it's got only to be opened by a divisional or branch commander, right? So you're talking about only to be opened by a senior officer. Okay. It's got a flap on it, which has got no stickiness whatsoever. Piece of sellotape, which is no stickiness, which implies it's been opened loads of times, doesn't it? So I think, well, it's in my file. I'll have a look. I open it. It's a memo from a Superintendent Holman, who's another Mason. Yeah, who was in the Y department, which is internal investigations. And it's to Assistant Chief Constable McCrone, who was another one who was bloody waste of space. And it says, this officer is not to be trusted, basically inferring I'm corrupt. Yeah. And that has been on my file.
All those years? For
8 years.
Oh, man.
So what I did was I got a few things together and I said to this lady, can I have these photocopies? She went, yeah, no problem. And I even got the back of the envelope photocopied. I've got them. Yeah, I have got them. So I take them away. And then I start asking questions then. Because as a police officer, it was said I was under investigation as well. I'd been under investigation, which in the police, you should have forms served on you. Yeah, officially, to make you aware of it. So this inferred that 8 years earlier, I had been under investigation and I was corrupt and not to be trusted. So I then put a report in asking why 8 years ago I had not been told about this inquiry into me. What was the circumstances of it and what was the result? I then get, as soon as that lands on the Chief Super's desk in internal investigations, I get sent for to go and see him. And he says to me, I can only apologise. He says, I've heard about these brown envelopes, but I've never seen one to this day. And I've seen yours. He said, all I can say to you is there was no official investigation. Yeah, all I can say to you, it was a Masonic conspiracy within the CID. Yeah. So why was that put there? Yeah. It's because I've been blamed for Ken Seddon. Yeah. Yeah. Now what happens to him in the meantime? He gets sent to Australia as an ambassador for the police, GMP, on an anti-corruption inquiry with his family. And I see him one day leaving the headquarters building, getting waved off by everyone. Yeah, this is the guy who's been running that department as he did. Yeah, seeing people off who didn't fit the bill for him, and yet he now goes to Australia
as the front man.
As the front man on an anti-corruption inquiry.
Bloody hell!
He gets sent back from there. Yeah, under a cloud. Yeah, for irregularities. And I am now friendly with a guy who lives in Australia who went on the secondment with him at the same time, who went from Cambridgeshire Police, and he docked him in over there. Because of what he was doing while he was in Australia. And I'm in touch with him. I met him in Australia last year. And when he comes back from Australia under a cloud, he gets arrested here and he's charged with and convicted of numerous offensive deception. And he had to resign. And then the judge, as opposed to sending him to prison, took 40,000 out of his pension fund.
And that's it?
That's what happened. He got 40,000 out of his compensatory grant because he was due to go with his pension, as opposed to sending him to prison. But what he's also done since now, he's now gone out there. He's got citizenship in Australia, and he runs a packaging company in Australia. Wow. But I can't understand how he's got citizenship
Yeah.
when you have convictions for criminal offences in this country.
But would he have proper convictions, or would it be listen, just give us 40 grand off?
No, he got convicted.
Okay, he got convicted.
Yeah, but
okay.
what the judge says, I want full verse on his financial situation, what he's due to get from his pension. Even though he resigned, he was entitled.
What was he getting? What was he convicted for? How many accounts was he convicted?
21 offences.
21
of deception. Yeah,
all deception.
Yeah, and you know who his co-accused was?
Go on.
Colin Heaney, the car dealer
from Oldham.
Yeah. This is the guy he's buying covert cars for. Yeah, for our office.
How corrupt are the old Bill?
Well, what they did, I've seen things and I've heard things myself, but when it happens to you personally and the lengths they went to, like I was nominated for the Queen's Police Medal myself, as you know, as I've told you. My mate gets it and I don't. So I then have a 3-year campaign. Right? This is where my tapes come into play.
Yeah. Was this 3-year campaign after Seddon got convicted, or did you do it before?
I should have got the QPM in 96 like he did. Yeah. I got it in 99.
Oh, so you did get it?
I got it.
And when did he get nicked?
2000 and something. So I start utilising stuff I've got.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, to support my argument with the Home Office.
So who did you go to then? You've been kept this tape for years. Why did you not bring it out?
I have done when the time was right.
But
when I suddenly realised that I've been set up here and they've ruined my life, my career, my health.
And that's when it came out?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, because it's hard. I'm still in the police.
Yeah.
Yeah. And although I've been ostracised because I'm stuck in a basement, I'm still reliant on them for my wages.
Yeah.
And I've got my wife saying, don't do anything else now.
So when did you leave the old Bill? What year?
2005.
2005?
Yeah.
What year did this tape come out?
I've got transcripts of it. So nobody to this day has ever listened to it.
Have you got it on you?
Not got it on me, no. But I've done transcripts for the Home Office. Yeah. So I've supplied evidence. I've recently, because I got contacted by Angela Rayner, MP, Deputy Labour Leader, last year. She read my book, got in touch with me, and I went to see her. And as a result of seeing her, I put a complaint in now about those police officers, senior officers who did what they did to me, because no one's ever been brought to book.
This is 20 years ago. This is 19 years ago.
I know. But she was saying, like, you know, at the end of the day, they've walked away and nothing's ever happened to them. But it's GMP responsible for what happened to them.
I want to know, if you were so cheesed off about all this, why did it take you so long? I know you're getting your wages off them. Did you wait until you actually stopped and then go, right, there's the evidence?
I've not actually sat down with anybody, because what they say to me is, I've recently submitted it all to the IOPC. And
what's IOPC?
Independent Office for Police Conduct.
Okay.
Yeah, who oversee police forces and their conduct.
Okay.
I've also give it to GMP, Great Manchester Police Professional Standards Department, who investigate corrupt police officers.
Yeah.
After 9 months, right, of having that submitted to them, they came back to me and they hide behind Section 29 of the Police Reform Act 2002, which says a police officer can't complain about another police officer if they both served under the same chief officer.
A police officer, you can't complain about
another police officer if you both served under the same chief officer.
Oh, wow.
So they said, your complaint is invalid.
Right.
We won't even look at what you've got. When I said to you, when I first come today, it's great to be able to talk about this because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And police forces don't want any shite coming out about themselves. So they will cover it up as best they can. This, when you look at it in the cool light of day, if you had people who wanted to sit down and listen to what was said, you can't come up with any other conclusion than, in fact, what was going on.
Yeah.
And what I'll tell you what was going on, he was a Mason. He ran an elite department, the Covert Operations Department. He was ruining it. He got found out. So they got rid of him overnight, put him out on a division, put a new boss in charge. But they didn't want that to hit the papers or anything to do with the public in Greater Manchester, because the repercussions of that would have been immense. So they put him out to grass. Then they sent him to Australia.
Yeah.
Now, why did they do that to him? Why has he got that protection?
Yeah.
When had it been me doing those things, I'd have got sacked.
Yeah.
So what is it?
So is just so I understand it, is the police There's one. What the letters you said? IOPC.
IOPC.
IOPC. Are they the sort of the umbrella for all the police all around the UK?
Yeah, you have to go to the professional standards department of the force you're complaining about first. They'll look at it. Then it can be moved to the IOPC.
Okay. So are you saying IOPC are full of Masons as well?
Well, could well be. There's Masons in every area of like the judiciary.
Yeah.
The judges who are Masons. They're everywhere. Now, I'm not against them per se.
How would you explain a Mason?
What one is?
Yeah.
It's this group of men who come together, swear an oath to themselves.
All men.
And it's all about
all men, is it?
Anybody? No, young men.
Okay.
But it's all about self-advancement. So you join in to be in a group with other like-thinking people who use that for getting on in life.
Right.
So, for example, you're in there. My neighbour is a Mason. He had a business, butchers. I can understand if you've got a business to network with other people, you can build your business up because you'll have contacts in the Masons who've got this.
But if you're in power with police or judges or da-da-da.
Good example, Kenny Noy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kenny Noy, he was a member of the Hammersmith Lodge. Mm. Now, there was a lot of senior officers in the Met who were in that lodge. He got pally with them. What is he finding out while he's in there? Who is he being protected by in there, in that lodge, from those police officers? The private investigator, Daniel Morgan, remember him? Do you know him?
No.
Daniel Morgan in London ran a private investigation company. He was about to blow the whistle on corrupt Masonic police officers in the Met. Had the evidence in the boot of his car. He meets his partner, who was later suspected of having killed Daniel Morgan. But he meets him in the pub. His partner leaves the front door. Daniel Morgan comes out the back door into the car park. He just bought 2 packets of crisps for his kids to take home with him. He's found in the car park with an axe in his head. And the evidence had gone out the boot.
Oh.
And that story, there's just something recently where his family have got some sort of recompense over this.
Right.
But they've batted it off. And it was about Masonic corruption in the Met. Mm. And he had a case file he was going to. And he to think somebody.
Who's the MP at the moment up there? Is it Andy Burnham?
Andy Burnham's in Manchester. He's the mayor.
He's the mayor.
Yeah.
Good guy.
But I don't rate him. He seems to jump on every bandwagon that's going. Right. I've been in touch with his deputy, Kate Green, and she's in charge of policing in Greater Manchester. Total waste of time.
So if you were to explain to the listeners today, what do you think the Greater Manchester Police is today? Well,
they would say, as they do all the time, we've took these things on board and we've changed. But obviously, at one point, a few years back, they wanted to bring out a register, and they were saying anybody in the police should sign this register and declare you're a Mason, right?
They have done that.
That's what they were planning to do.
Okay, so that'd be a good thing, right?
It would be.
Yeah.
And why would you? What they say is we're not a secret society. We're a society with secrets. That's what they say. Yeah.
Is that what they say?
So, yeah. So they have a register. They were hoping to get police officers to declare that they were Masons. So what happened then in Italy? It went to the Court of Human Rights, and they decided you can't do that. So the whole suggestion got put back.
Can you see why some policemen want to become Masons and get in, to work their way up the ladder? Yeah,
you know why? And it was always said when I first joined, they'd say, "How's he got promoted? What about him has got him promoted?"
Yeah,
and they'd say he's in such and such a lodge.
Okay,
right. So, and what would happen on a police board if you've got to pass the exam, then the next stage would be you go on a board, and a board would consist of 3 senior officers, right? Chief super, assistant chief constables, they'd be there. Now, if they were in the lodge, the one you're in, you go before them. Who's going to get promoted?
Yeah.
When you say about for self advancement, and the guy in charge of Peter Toppin was a chief super in charge of the CID in Greater Manchester Police, and when Stalker was suspended, he got installed as chief super of head of CID. And when he came back, Stalker, he got him in because he said, had I been in force, he would never have got that job because
Yeah.
he didn't have the experience to be chief superintendent in charge of CID. And so he said, I got him in, and it's in Stalker's book, and I've put it in mine, the extract. And he says, and I asked him, Stalker says, I asked Topping, why is it that all the drug squad and the fraud squad are now members of the Masonic Lodge?
Right.
So the entire department's got Masons in. And he said, I don't see anything wrong with it. He said, they're the only ones I can trust. He said, the others I only think I can trust.
Right.
So, and Stalker says to him, so all things being equal, if you had two people at an interview for a job,
But one's a Mason,
one's a
not.
Mason,
Yeah.
you'd always pick the Mason.
Right,
And he
okay.
said, yeah, because I don't see how
How
wrong
do
with
you
that.
do you know by looking at someone whether they're a Mason?
Well, you know,
Can you
they
tell?
have particular handshakes.
Wait, isn't it? How's it work? How's the handshake work?
So the handshake.
Go on.
So if I was meeting you for the first time, we'd shake hands and I'd press on your knuckles.
Oh, what, that's the code, is it?
So I've shook people's hands in the past and they've shook me hand like that and they've gone.
Oh, really?
And I look at them and I want to headbutt them.
Yeah.
You know,
So that's what it is, to press the knuckles, is
You
it?
press the knuckles and that's a sign.
Bloody hell.
And then if you hit it back, so you might be somewhere and you shake hands, so you know straight away. What they say is, are you on the square?
Yeah, okay.
Are you on the square? Yeah.
You could have a right laugh, couldn't you, if you weren't a Mason and give you that.
Yeah. I mean, I joke and say that all Masons are Misterons. They've all got red eyes.
Yeah.
So I always look at people's eyes first.
Yeah, look me in the eye, do that, and you're under. Quality. So let's move on to your book here. Yeah?
Yeah.
Undercover Policing and the Corrupt Secret of Society.
Secret
Within.
Society. So what I'm talking about.
Garry Rogers. Go and check out this book. Where can people...
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
Amazon, yeah. And believe me, some people say you must make a fortune.
No, you don't.
You don't,
No.
unless you're J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
But any opportunity I get to talk about this and to get this story out, I don't make nothing from that.
Yeah.
Believe me. But the story is in there, and everything in it is true.
Yeah.
And I've named all those people who I've talked about today in there, and I've not had a single libel claim.
Wow. Because they know.
Because I've got tape recordings of every conversation which concerns the corruption side of things and how they altered documents, which I haven't gone into today. I haven't had time, but they were official.
Hold on. Old Bill altering documents.
Right. So when
Give me
you
an
asked me
example.
before about commendations.
And have you ever seen Old Bill take drugs from a raid and go, I'll have some of that? Or have you seen money going on? Or have you seen that a report's come in and that report can get ripped up and put that in the bin? No one needs to see that.
No
Does that
one's ever done that. I know things have gone on and allegations been made about it, but certainly I've never seen it. I mean, I tell a story in there when I first joined, and I was at Bootle Street in uniform. I was on afternoons, and I'd normally be out on foot patrol, but because I had some hours built up to have time off, I was asking off at 7 o'clock. So I worked from 3 till 7, yeah, and then I was going off work. What they did was they put me on the van with an older police officer. He used to walk around like he had 2 rolls of carpet under his arm. Been in years. So I was with him, and the conversation was, he obviously didn't want me with him, really. So I finished at 7, and as I've gone off home afterwards, he gets called, as does everybody else, to Paulden's store in Manchester. And there's a thieves on, which implies someone's in there.
Yeah.
Alarm's gone off. So they go in, and they're checking all the different floors. He doesn't know. I mean, it was unusual then to have CCTV, but he's on a particular floor. And he's seen by security staff taking a belt off the display, puts it in his pocket. And I tell the story in there. Had I have not asked off at 7, I could have been stood with him.
Yeah.
And he might have said to me,
take that.
yeah, it's one for you.
Yeah.
And if I'd have said, no, I don't want it. And I said, no, I don't want one. And he'd put one in his pocket. My dilemma then was, as a new police officer there, do I
keep stum or do I take what you have?
do I go, ooh,
I'll have it, yeah.
ooh, I don't want anything to do with that. Or do I arrest him?
Yeah.
And then, but so I've never been put in that situation. And thankfully that night I wasn't with him because he got arrested, got sacked. Yeah. But it was as easy as that.
Yeah.
But no one's ever openly done anything like that in front of me.
But there must be times someone's written a report and they've gone, you know what, they don't need to see that. Off the table, off the records, done.
No, I've never.
No.
I mean, I know there's been suggestions that things have happened.
Yeah.
But, I was seeing myself what Seddon was doing.
Yeah, okay.
And I did something about it.
And that was eating away at you every day.
Eating away at me. Yeah.
Right.
Because, to think I had to fight 3 years to get the Queen's Police Medal, which I should have got 3 years
Let's
earlier.
go with that. The Queen's Police Medal.
Queen's Police
Where
Medal.
were you when you got that?
Where do you get it from?
Yeah.
You go to Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, Buckingham.
Yeah.
Brilliant. How was that for you?
Well, I tell the story in there. I went with my wife, and after I got it, I said to her, the icing off the cake's gone.
Okay.
Because I've forced the issue.
Yeah, okay.
They've not said to me, hey, Garry, we've made a big mistake here.
Yeah.
I had to get in touch with John Stevens, who's now Sir John Stevens, who was the HMI. It was only because...
HMI?
Yeah. Do you know who John Stevens is?
No.
He was the Met Police Met Police Chief. He did the report when Princess Diana died in the tunnel.
Okay.
Renowned guy.
Yeah.
But he was HMI who came to report on policing in GMP. That they come every year. You have an option to go and speak to him if you want. So as a result of speaking to him, he got me a one-to-one interview with the Chief Constable, David Wilmot, who I went to see. And up to that point, like everything, they let the good stuff go up, but they don't let the shit go up.
Yeah,
so he knew nothing about what had been happening to me. I got to sit on the other side of the table for an hour with him. And I give it him straight. And he said to me, what you said to me today gives me great concern. And after that, he reinstigated my Queen's Police Medal.
Brilliant.
But that was the length I had to go to get it. So yeah, I've got it. I'm proud I've got it. But
you wish you got it. You wish you got it the other way.
3 years earlier.
Yeah. Okay. How did you feel when Seddon got nicked and was pushed out of the force?
I thumped the air.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because the way he spoke to me and the way he was, and the way he shit on people for his own advancement, and it's so obnoxious. It's untrue. If he was to come in here now, I could punch his head off.
Yeah. Okay.
He's ruined that many people's lives. Yet he's protected by senior officers in a force, second biggest in the country. And like I said to you before, they focused on who sent that letter.
Yeah.
Not what has he been doing.
And your name was linked to that letter.
And I'm linked to that.
Oh,
so what they then do is they do all these things. They start
things
putting
in place.
Putting things in my personal file for things people to read, saying I'm bent.
Yeah.
And I've been under investigation when I haven't.
Have you ever done anything corrupt in the old bill?
No.
Nothing.
No. I mean, what do you say? Anything bent?
Yeah.
There's bent and there's bent.
Yeah.
I've never set anybody up.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been convicted, I had to, when I found that report about myself being claimed I was corrupt, not to be trusted, I had to see for myself that my personal discipline file didn't have anything in like that. Because had it been true, in the year they were saying I was under investigation, it should have been there.
Yeah.
So I asked to see it. And they said to me, what do you want to see it for? I said, it's just a personal matter.
Yeah.
So I went to headquarters and they let me have a look. And the guy who showed me, an inspector, he said, you've got a great discipline record, considering the departments you've worked in.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't have...
Have you printed that and put it in here in your book?
Yeah.
You have you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So everything in there from start to finish. I could sit here now for another 3 weeks because there's a lot of stuff I've missed out. And I've jumped ahead, and
it's been a great.
So if you read, I'm not just pushing the book.
Yeah,
I'm saying
it's all in
the
there.
Whole
basically.
story's in there.
Yeah,
and any chance I get, I've even do a talk on it now.
Yeah.
So
Garry, I've really enjoyed this, mate.
I've enjoyed doing it.
And
for me, it's
cathartic.
Yeah, for me to get it talking.
Yeah, I'm glad we got a platform for you to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But you certainly lived an eventful life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's plenty more stories there as well. We could go on for hours. We've just done an hour and 57, 2 hours now.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The only thing I can say to you've got to be careful when you go out. If you get a red spot on your head, you know there's a marksman over there.
They're after you.
You know the story as well, now.
Garry, thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. I appreciate you coming down from Manchester.
It was well worth it, I tell you.
You're a gentleman.
All right, thanks very much.
Good man.
Yeah, don't give me the Masonic handshake.
I thought it was a funny dance. I thought we had to do a funny... There's rumours out there you've got to do a funny dance in it.
You have to have trouser legs up, that's the other thing.
Quality, good man.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Can you do us a favour and subscribe to the channel? It's totally free and it massively helps our show. Cheers guys.